Chapter 1: The Discovery. Emily Bennett had always been fascinated by history. As a child, she would spend hours exploring old family photographs, letters, and trinkets stored in the attic of her ancestral home. Now, as an adult, her passion had only deepened, leading her to pursue a career as a historian. Her weekends were often spent at estate sales, antique shops, and, of course, in that same dusty attic. It was on one such weekend that Emily discovered an old, leather-bound diary hidden beneath a loose floorboard in the attic. Its cover was worn, and the pages yellowed with age. Intrigued, she carefully opened the book, her eyes widening as she realized it was a personal journal from the 18th century. The diary belonged to a young woman named Elizabeth Whitley. Emily read the first entry aloud, June 3, 1785. Today, I find myself confined to my room once more, as father insists I marry the man of his choosing. But my heart belongs to another, a love forbidden by the constraints of our society. Emily was captivated. She spent the entire afternoon engrossed in Elizabeth's world, reading about her secret love affair with a dashing nobleman named Thomas. The entries were filled with passion, longing, and a sense of hopelessness that tugged at Emily's heartstrings. Chapter 2: The First Encounter. As night fell, Emily couldn't bring herself to put the diary down. She felt an inexplicable connection to Elizabeth, as if their souls were intertwined across the centuries. Exhausted, she finally fell asleep with the diary clutched in her hands. In the middle of the night, a strange sensation washed over her. She felt as though she were floating, the world around her spinning faster and faster. When she opened her eyes, she was no longer in her attic. Instead, she found herself standing in the middle of a grand ballroom, lit by crystal chandeliers and filled with elegantly dressed people. Confused and disoriented, Emily looked around frantically. She caught a glimpse of her reflection in a mirror and gasped. She was wearing a beautiful 18th-century gown, her hair styled in elaborate curls. "Miss Whitley, are you feeling unwell?" a concerned voice asked from behind her. Emily turned to see a handsome young man with piercing blue eyes and a charming smile. I think I'm fine," she stammered, unsure of what was happening. "I'm Thomas, by the way," he said, offering her a polite bow. "May I have the pleasure of this dance?" Emily's heart raced. This was the Thomas from Elizabeth's diary. Somehow, she had been transported back in time, and she was now living Elizabeth's life. Trying to steady her nerves, she nodded and took his hand. As they danced, Emily couldn't help but feel a powerful connection to Thomas. His touch was gentle yet firm, and his eyes held a depth of emotion that drew her in. She knew she had to find a way to navigate this strange new world and discover what had happened to Elizabeth and Thomas. Chapter 3: A Forbidden Love. Over the next few weeks, Emily adjusted to her new life as Elizabeth. She quickly learned that Elizabeth's father was a stern and controlling man who had arranged for her to marry a wealthy but cruel suitor named Lord Ashford. Emily's heart ached as she read more of Elizabeth's diary, understanding the depth of her despair. Determined to change Elizabeth's fate, Emily sought out Thomas at every opportunity. They met in secret, sharing stolen moments in hidden corners of the estate. Their love grew stronger with each passing day, and Emily found herself falling deeply in love with Thomas. One evening, as they sat together beneath the stars, Thomas took her hand and looked into her eyes. "Elizabeth, we cannot go on like this. We must find a way to be together, openly and freely." Emily nodded, her heart pounding. "But how? My father will never allow it. He is determined to see me married to Lord Ashford." Thomas's expression hardened. "Then we must leave. Run away together and start a new life far from here." Emily's breath caught in her throat. The idea was both thrilling and terrifying. She knew the risks, but the thought of living without Thomas was unbearable. "Yes," she whispered. "Let's do it." Chapter 4: The Escape. The night of their planned escape arrived. Emily packed a small bag with essentials and slipped out of her room, her heart racing. She made her way to the garden, where Thomas was waiting with 2 horses. "Are you ready?" he asked, his eyes filled with determination. Emily nodded, mounting her horse. "Let's go." They rode through the night, the wind whipping through their hair as they put distance between themselves and the oppressive constraints of their former lives. They found refuge in a small village, where they were welcomed by kind-hearted locals who knew nothing of their past. For a time, they were blissfully happy. They built a modest home and lived simply, finding joy in the little things. Emily felt truly free for the first time in her life, and her love for Thomas grew deeper each day. But their happiness was short-lived. Lord Ashford, humiliated by Elizabeth's disappearance, was determined to find her and bring her back. He hired a group of ruthless men to track them down, and it wasn't long before they were discovered. Chapter 5: The Confrontation. One evening, as Emily and Thomas sat by the fire, they heard the sound of horses approaching. Thomas's face grew grim. "They've found us," he said quietly. Emily's heart sank. "What do we do?" "We fight," Thomas replied, his voice steely with resolve. The door burst open, and Lord Ashford's men stormed in. Thomas fought bravely, but they were outnumbered and overpowered. Emily screamed as Thomas was struck down, his body collapsing to the floor. "Take her," Lord Ashford ordered, his eyes cold and merciless. "She belongs to me." Emily struggled against the men who seized her, tears streaming down her face. "No. Let me go." But her cries fell on deaf ears. She was dragged away, her heart shattered by the loss of the man she loved. Chapter 6: The Return. Emily awoke with a start, gasping for breath. She was back in her attic, the diary still clutched in her hands. Tears streamed down her face as she remembered the horrors of the night before. It had all felt so real, but now she was back in her own time, her heart heavy with grief. Determined to find out what had happened to Elizabeth and Thomas, Emily continued reading the diary. She learned that Elizabeth had been forced to marry Lord Ashford, but she never forgot Thomas. She secretly worked to undermine Lord Ashford's cruel rule, using her position to help those in need. As the years passed, Elizabeth's strength and resilience became a beacon of hope for others. She never remarried after Lord Ashford's death, choosing instead to dedicate her life to helping others. She kept Thomas's memory alive, honoring their love by living a life of courage and compassion. Chapter 7: A New Beginning. Emily closed the diary, her heart filled with admiration for Elizabeth's bravery. She realized that Elizabeth's story was not just one of love and loss, but also of strength and resilience in the face of adversity. Inspired by Elizabeth's legacy, Emily decided to write a book about her story, ensuring that her courage and love would never be forgotten. As she worked on the book, Emily felt a renewed sense of purpose. She poured her heart into the words, hoping to do justice to Elizabeth and Thomas's love. When the book was finally published, it became an instant success, touching the hearts of readers around the world. Emily's story didn't end there. She continued to explore her passion for history, uncovering more hidden stories and sharing them with others. She also started a foundation in Elizabeth's name, dedicated to helping women in difficult situations find the strength and support they needed to overcome their challenges. In the end, Emily realized that love was not just about the moments of passion and joy, but also about the strength and resilience it gave people to face life's hardships. Elizabeth and Thomas's love had transcended time, leaving a lasting impact on her life and the lives of countless others. And as she looked out at the world, Emily knew that their love would continue to inspire and guide her, no matter what the future held. Chapter 8: The Legacy of Love. Years passed, and Emily's work continued to flourish. Her book about Elizabeth and Thomas's love story was translated into multiple languages, reaching people across the globe. Letters poured in from readers who were moved by the story, many sharing their own tales of love and resilience. Emily also expanded the foundation, creating programs to support education, provide shelter, and offer counseling for women in need. The foundation's impact grew, helping countless individuals find their strength and build better lives for themselves and their families. One day, as Emily was organizing a fundraising event for the foundation, she received an unexpected visitor. A young woman named Sarah approached her, holding an old, worn diary. "I think you might want to see this," she said, her voice trembling with excitement. Emily took the diary and opened it, her eyes widening as she recognized the handwriting. It was Thomas's diary, detailing his love for Elizabeth and the pain of their separation. Tears filled her eyes as she read his words, feeling the depth of his love and the sorrow of their forced parting. Sarah explained that she had found the diary in her family's attic and had been searching for its rightful place. "I read your book," she said softly. "I knew I had to bring this to you." Emily hugged Sarah, overwhelmed with gratitude. "Thank you," she whispered. "This means more to me than you can imagine." With Thomas's diary in hand, Emily felt a sense of closure. She knew that their love story was now complete, their voices joined together across the centuries. She decided to write a sequel, sharing Thomas's perspective and giving readers a deeper understanding of their love and sacrifice. Chapter 9: A Timeless Love. As Emily worked on the sequel, she felt a profound connection to Elizabeth and Thomas. Their love had transcended time, touching her life in ways she could never have imagined. She realized that their story was a testament to the enduring power of love, a force that could overcome any obstacle and leave a lasting legacy. The sequel was met with the same enthusiasm as the first book, resonating with readers who found hope and inspiration in the timeless love story. Emily's foundation continued to grow, helping even more people find their strength and build better lives. In her heart, Emily knew that Elizabeth and Thomas's love would always be a part of her. Their story had given her a sense of purpose and had shown her the true power of love and resilience. And as she looked out at the world, she felt a deep sense of gratitude for the journey she had taken, one that had been guided by the enduring legacy of a love that had transcended time. Epilogue: The Eternal Dance. Many years later, Emily stood in the garden of her ancestral home, now a museum dedicated to the love story of Elizabeth and Thomas. Visitors from all over the world came to see the artifacts, read the diaries, and learn about the incredible love that had inspired so many. As she walked through the garden, she felt a gentle breeze and closed her eyes, imagining Elizabeth and Thomas dancing under the stars. She could almost hear their laughter, feel their joy, and see their love shining brightly. Emily knew that their love would live on forever, a timeless testament to the power of the human heart. And as she continued her work, sharing stories of love and resilience, she felt a deep sense of peace, knowing that their legacy would inspire generations to come. Their love story, once hidden in the pages of a forgotten diary, had become a beacon of hope and strength. And as Emily looked out at the world, she knew that their love would continue to guide and inspire her, now and always.